Okay, this is Chapter 7 of Zodiac. Zodiac, Saturday, October 18th, 1969. Captain Marty Lee assigned a 10-man team to the Stein case and braced himself for a long, arduous investigation in the search for Zodiac. Lee knew they would have to learn something about the astrology angle somewhere along the line. He made a note to consult with various astrologers. Lee also planned to meet with authorities from Napa and Vallejo. Apprehensive about another attack, Lee had been the man behind the issuance of the All Points Bulletin to the school bus drivers of the 3 counties. He was also convinced that Zodiac knew Presidio Heights well enough to know it would be almost devoid of automobile traffic at 10 p.m. When he spoke to the press, Lee categorized Zodiac as a liar. His boast of being in the area while we were searching it is a lie. We had the whole area flooded with lights. We had 7 police dogs and a large number of patrolmen searching the area tree by tree and bush by bush. The dogs are the best in the country. A mouse couldn't have escaped our attention. The fact that Zodiac failed to mention dogs and floodlights proves he wasn't anywhere in the vicinity. By mail and phone, literally 1,000 tips flooded into SFPD from alarmed citizens. The detectives began to sort out the communications that fingered neighbors, fellow employees, and ex-husbands as possible Zodiacs. The police switchboard was inundated with calls. Lee tripled the usual weekend force, who took turns answering phones. Vallejo Police Captain Wade Bird, who had been looking for Zodiac since July, had his own theories. I think he'll prove to be a genius who got so far out he went over the edge. He may or may not be a local man. Many, no, thousands of people lived here during the war and came to know the area, then moved away. He did know about our lovers' lanes, though. They weren't very far apart. Some say he is a commuter, that he commits these murders, then mails letters about them from work in San Francisco. I don't think so. I don't believe a man this disturbed could hold down a steady, regular job. He's too far gone for that. Dr. Leonati Thompson, a Napa State psychiatrist, told the press that for some psychotics, the act of killing is a denial of helplessness. Psychosis is the gradual blotting out of the ego, a terrifying loss of one's own image of oneself. He does things busily, fiercely, and then lapses again. Among psychotics, schizophrenics of the paranoid type are usually secretive and guarded in their dealings with the world. They can deal relatively well with the outside world and at the same time carry around their private visions of what the world is really like. In Napa, Under Sheriff Tom Johnson was swamped by hundreds of leads and yet still had not been able to shape them into the image of one solid suspect. There's no one we want more, Johnson said. We're not going to let up. He's our top priority. And yet there was in the air the overriding fear that Zodiac would kill again, and soon. Sunday, October 19th, 1969. State Attorney General Thomas C. Lynch issued an entreaty to Zodiac to turn himself in. At the same time, he quietly called for a seminar on the killer to include representatives of various jurisdictions so they could exchange information about the earlier killings. We will see that he gets help and that all of his rights are protected, Lynch said in his appeal. He is obviously an intelligent individual. He knows that eventually he will be taken into custody, so it would be best that he give himself up before tragedy is written in blood. The plea for surrender went unanswered. Sunday's Examiner issued its own plea to the killer. Their message ran across the top of page 1. 5 people are dead. Let there be no more killings. Police say you are intelligent. If you are, then listen to reason. You are being hunted everywhere in the state and nation. You are alone in this world. You can share your secrets with no one. No friend can help you. You are as much a victim of your crimes as those whose lives you snuffed out. You cannot walk the streets a free man. There is no safety for you anywhere, and you will be caught, there is no doubt. You face life as a hunted, tormented animal unless you help yourself. We ask that you give yourself up to the Examiner. We offer you no protection and no sympathy, but we do offer you fair treatment, the assurance of medical help, and the full benefits of your legal rights. And we offer to tell your story. Why have you killed? How has life wronged you? Call the city editor of the Examiner any time, day or night. The telephone number is 415-781-2424. Call collect. Your call will not be traced. Zodiac not only ignored this entreaty, but never again wrote to the Examiner. Evidently, he found their approach insulting. Monday, October 20th, 1969. 9 days after Paul Stein's murder, a Zodiac seminar was convened in San Francisco at the Hall of Justice. Armstrong and Takashi attended, and the sheriff's and police departments of Napa, Solano, Benicia, Vallejo, San Mateo, and Marin sent investigators. The FBI and Naval Intelligence were present, as well as U.S. Postal Inspectors, the Highway Patrol, and the State Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation, CI&I. Napa had asked the state to send one of its agents, and CI&I had provided handwriting experts and arranged for the use of the criminal lab in Sacramento. Attorney General Lynch was still in Colorado attending a meeting of Attorneys General of Western states and was represented by his number 2 man, Arlo Smith. A large blackboard stood in front of the room. Etched in white chalk on the ebony surface was a large cross circle, the sign of the Zodiac. One by one, the crime scenes were drawn and erased as the detectives exchanged these small scraps of information. The 9mm semi-automatic pistol Zodiac had used to murder Stein was relatively rare. Only 143 guns of this type had been sold in the Bay Area in the last 3 years. Takashi's theory was that the 9mm gun used in the cab driver's murder was probably a new model Browning, and odds were that it was different from the 9mm used by Zodiac in the past. Until the letter to the Chronicle, Tashi had investigated the Stein killing as just another big city stick-up. Probably this was what the killer had wanted the police to think. But there was also the possibility that Stein had been chosen for a reason when it was not just a random victim. The most difficult homicide to solve for even an experienced homicide team like Takashi and Armstrong is a hold-up and murder of a cab driver in his cab. Usually, the murderer gets the driver to a deserted spot under the cover of darkness. Most slayings of this type are gunshots to the head, and most are contact wounds. Therefore, no one even hears the report of the gun. Tashi had learned over the years there is seldom, if any, physical evidence in the cab. Usually, all an assailant will touch is the inner door handle to close the door as he gets in or as he is leaving. All you can get are smudge prints, unusable, or you get just the opposite. There might be 5 good usable sets of prints in the cab and on the doorpost or the side mirror, mostly left by prior riders or cab company employees. In the killing of a cabbie, Tashi told me, it's either feast or famine. At least in a grocery store slaying, the suspect will usually buy or pick up a can of Coke or beer or a box of cookies, a bottle of booze, which will leave latent prints. Sometimes, in an effort to grab every last penny out of the cash register, the suspect will leave a nice area of prints or even touch the counter. In most cab driver murders, the physical evidence is minimal. What you really need is a lot of hard work, Tashi told me, and luck. In Vallejo later, I asked Detective Sergeant Molnax, who had taken over the Farron case, about the cab print. So they have a latent print, said Molnax. It's my own personal opinion there's a lot of doubt this could be a Zodiac print. You dust a cab, you're going to lift some latents off it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the guy that did the job. The lab men's investigation had proven that no more than one shot had been fired in Stein's cab. Except for the 9mm casing found on the floorboard next to the body, no other bullet hole and no other slug were found. Through Stein's employers and co-workers, Tashi discovered that the cabbie kept his cab fares either in his wallet or in his pocket, but generally in his pocket. Stein's wife claimed he had only $3 or $4 of his own money when he left home for work. He normally kept his fare money and tip money all together and would separate it at the end of the shift. Captain Lee had made certain that the seminar was a meeting of police professionals only. No psychics, mystics, or astrologists were in attendance, as they sometimes were. I couldn't say we're any closer to matching the suspect, he said at the end of the 3-hour session. At the seminar's end, the detectives took note that all of the Zodiac murders had occurred on weekends. Now would come the back-breaking question of gun dealers all over California. In an attempt to match up the handwriting, signatures on gun registration forms would be compared with the Zodiac letters received so far. New federal gun laws had taken effect earlier that year, but up until then, many foreign-made models could be bought through the mail from dozens of outlets that advertised in men's magazines. Perhaps Zodiac had a reason for using a weapon only once. Meanwhile, in Napa, armed guards and volunteers, off-duty teachers, drivers, and firemen continued to ride the school buses. Wednesday, October 22nd, 1969. It was 2 a.m. when the phone rang at the Oakland PD call room. The police operator picked up the phone and stiffened as a male voice said, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I want you to get in touch with F. Lee Bailey. If you can't come up with Bailey, I'll settle for Mel Belly. I want one or the other to appear on the Channel 7 talk show. I'll make contact by phone." If there was anyone as colorful as attorney F. Lee Bailey, the Boston Strangler's lawyer, it was Melvin Belly, the king of torts. Silver-tongued, silver-haired Belly moved in a world of glamour and opulence. Shaken by the call, Oakland got in touch with Marty Lee, and Lee in turn with Tashi and Armstrong. Within 2 hours, Lee phoned Belly at his penthouse at 1228 Montgomery Street on Telegraph Hill. Belly readily agreed to appear. Arrangements were made with the show's host, Jim Dunbar, for Belly to be on the 2-hour program that morning. Dunbar's viewers are invited to call in and discuss the topics of the day, but this particular morning, he asked his fans to leave the lines open so that the killer could reach Belly. Although the show usually started at 7 a.m., it began a half-hour early that day. Belly and Dunbar sat and faced each other for a period of small talk and soap commercials. Like thousands of others, I watched the KGO talk show, and I wondered if I would finally hear the voice of the Zodiac killer. At 7:10, the phone finally rang. It was during a commercial, and the caller hung up almost immediately. The man had a hesitant and drifting voice. The next call came at 7:20. The following conversations are verbatim. Emotionally, Belly, in his best courtroom fashion, begged the self-styled Zodiac to give him a name less ominous. "Sam," said the young-sounding voice on the other end of the line. "How and where can we meet you?" Belly asked him. "Meet me on top of the Fairmont Hotel," he said. He paused. "Without anyone else or I'll jump." Sam hung up, called again, and continued the abrupt conversation for over 2 hours. 12 calls were eventually heard on the air out of a total of 35 calls made by Sam. The longest was 9 minutes. "Do you think you need medical care?" asked Belly. "Yes," answered Sam. "Medical, not mental. Do you have a health problem?" "I'm sick," said Sam. "I have headaches." "I have headaches too, but a chiropractor stopped them a week ago. I think I can help you. You won't have to talk to a soul in the world but me." Sam hung up, evidently fearful of his call being traced. Lee, watching from his office, said, "We're not trying to trace the call. It's a long, difficult process and ineffective with these brief calls." When Sam called back again at 8:25, Belly asked him what his problem was. "I don't want to go to the gas chamber. I have headaches," he said. "If I kill, I don't get them." "No one has gone to the gas chamber in years," said Belly. "You want to live, don't you? Well, this is your passport. How long have you been having these headaches?" "Since I killed a kid," answered Sam. "Can you remember your childhood?" "Yes." "Do you have blackouts?" "Yes." "Do you have fits?" "No, I just have headaches." "Do you take aspirin?" "Yes." "Does it do any good?" "No." "Did you attempt to call one other time when Mr. Bailey was with us 2 or 3 weeks ago?" asked Dunbar. "Yes." "Why did you want to talk to Bailey?" "When do you want to talk to me?" said Belly. "I don't want to be hurt," said Sam. "You're not going to be hurt. You're not going to be hurt if you talk to me." "You're not going to the gas chamber," said Dunbar. "I wouldn't think that they'd ask for capital punishment. We should ask the district attorney. You want me to do that, Sam? You want me to talk to the district attorney? Asked Belly. There was a small scream. What was that? I did not say anything. That was my headache, said Sam. You sound like you're in a great deal of pain, replied Belly. Your voice sounds muffled. What's the matter? My headaches, he said. I'm so sick. I'm having one of my headaches. Another little cry and a pause. I'm going to kill them. I'm going to kill all those kids, screamed Sam, and he hung up. When Sam called back again, Belly had the call put on a private line so the audience could not hear. Do you want me to be your lawyer? There is goodness in you. Would you like to tell me anything? Nothing. You feel like you're going to flip out? Sam, what do you want us to do? I feel an awful lonesomeness. Do you need free medicine or anything else? Wouldn't you like to get rid of those damn headaches? Belly said he'd try to get a promise from District Attorney John F. Fearden that Zodiac would not get the gas chamber if he was convicted of murder. Instead of the Fairmont, Belly suggested the steps of the Old St. Mary's Church in Chinatown as a meeting place, but Sam named another location of his choice, Daly City, in front of the St. Vincent de Paul thrift shop, 6726 Mission Street at 10:30 that morning. Take care of yourself, said Belly. Yeah, said Sam. It was probably one of the least secret meetings in history. Belly was followed by police who had monitored the private line. They, in turn, were followed by television camera crews, radio trucks, reporters, and photographers. Everyone was there. Everyone except Jim Dunbar, who had grown disenchanted with the whole circus. And, of course, Zodiac, if he was indeed who stood everyone up. After 45 minutes, Belly gave up and went home to get some sleep. Sam had said nothing that would help the police catch him. On the other hand, he had said nothing that would prove he was the real Zodiac. At least the mysterious caller's voice had been recorded by Channel 9. The Oakland patrolman who had received the original 2 a.m. call said he was certain he had talked to the real Zodiac and that he did not think it was the same voice he heard on the Dunbar show. Meanwhile, the 3 of the 4 living persons who had heard Zodiac's voice gathered in a tiny room at CGO-TV to hear a transcription of Sam's conversation with Belly. The 3 were Napa patrolman David Slate, Vallejo police switchboard operator Nancy Slover, and Brian Hartnell. For almost an hour they listened intently as the voice of Sam was played over and over. At the end they remained still and silent. Was this the voice of Zodiac? Brian spoke first. I felt that the voice on the tape was not as deep and as old as Zodiac's. The others shrugged their shoulders and shook their heads in agreement. It's too young, said the dark-haired, long-jawed patrolman Slate, less sure of himself. It's too pitiful and pathetic to be Zodiac, said Nancy Slover. It was only too obvious that the call to the Dunbar show was just someone taking advantage of the opportunity to call into the Zodiac telethon, or as one sarcastic cop suggested, the name of Dunbar's program be changed to Son of Zodiac. As things stand now, having no idea of the killer's identity, we're willing to try anything, said one detective, even if it means dealing with kooks. The mystery of Sam was eventually solved in subsequent calls to Belly. The caller was traced to Napa State Hospital and was discovered as a mental patient there. Cron TV called the press room at the Hall of Justice just before their evening news deadline to check on a story that Zodiac had been captured by the police after he arrived late at the Daly City meeting place. The rumor was that Zodiac was being held quietly until some sort of positive identification could be made. It turned out to be just a rumor, but it created considerable excitement. Around the same time, the Chronicle began to receive calls from readers who saw a connection between Zodiac and the current Dick Tracy comic strip. On August 17th, a few weeks after the Cypher Slayer dubbed himself Zodiac, the Zodiac Gang, a group of astrological killers led by a grotesque villain named Scorpio, made their appearance in the strip. The gang polished off an astrology columnist by drowning him, and Tracy found cuff links with a scorpion and a horoscope on his shirt. CI&I agents hoped that somewhere in one of the panels there might be a parallel between the fictional Zodiac killers and the real-life Zodiac. CI&I senior analyst in the crime lab, Earl Bauer, said, "It's just speculation at this point. We really haven't got into it yet. It's just one of those way out things that you take a look at." Dick Tracy is written and drawn several weeks ahead of publication to allow for proofreading, the making of mattes and proofs, and mailing time. The Tracy Zodiac sequence did not run until after Zodiac had made his choice of name, so it would be impossible for the strip to have influenced him unless Zodiac was someone who actually worked at a newspaper. Monday, November 1969. Armstrong and Tashi were notified that the Chronicle had received 2 more pieces of mail from Zodiac, both postmarked San Francisco. In his usual attempt to keep the police from tracing him through his handwriting, the killer had continued to print in tidy, small letters. However, there was no doubt that the mail was genuine. Another portion of Stein's gray and white shirt had been enclosed. As before, the envelopes were addressed simply to the Chronicle. "Please rush to editor." They had been mailed on Saturday, November 8th and Sunday, November 9th. In his new letter, Zodiac boasted of 2 more murders, 7 instead of the known 5. The only recent unsolved murders in the Bay Area that Tashi knew of were knife slayings. On August 3rd, 2 San Jose teenagers, classmates, left their homes in mid-morning to have a picnic on a hillside in the rugged Alameda Valley section of South San Jose. The girls, Deborah Gay Furlong, 14, and Kathy Snoozy, 15, locked their bikes to the chain fence at the bottom of the hill and made their way to a sunny knoll overlooking their subdivision homes. When they had not returned by 6 o'clock, the father of the youngest girl set off to look for them. When he neared the picnic area, he saw a large crowd of motorcyclists and police gathered together. Horror-stricken, he ran to the grove of trees. The girls' bodies were lying there. The girls were fully clothed except for a sandal that was found nearby. Detectives felt that they had been slain elsewhere because little blood was in evidence. In the evening dusk, a series of footprints were found in the hillside grove of oaks. The police began making plaster casts of these. Dr. John E. Hauser, Santa Clara County's chief medical examiner and coroner, was so shaken by the crime that he could scarcely talk. "I've never seen a case with this many stab wounds," he said. "You know, I've been in this profession a long time, and sometimes I think I'm rather callous. But when I saw these girls, believe me, it was terrifying. The Nazi sex mutilations during World War II were nothing compared to what was done to these young girls. The narrow-bladed knife that took the young children's lives in a blood frenzy had risen and fallen more than 300 times, all above the waist of the young victims." Tashi had feared that Zodiac was making good his threat that children make nice targets. Meanwhile, Zodiac's threat of murdering children continued to create panic. In San Jose, 475 outraged parents searched for the killer of Furlong and Snoozy, and vigilante groups patrolling the neighborhood in cars marked with white flags. All of the men were armed. The theory was that a tall, thin teenager was the killer and that he lived right in the neighborhood since he had disappeared so quickly after the murders. It would be almost 2 years until the killer of the children would be caught. Tashi knew of no other killings with the exception of an infant that he suspected had been killed by dogs. The detectives turned their attention to Zodiac's November 8th letter. Although, as usual, it had been overposted, the stamps were not placed upside down or vertically, but in a normal manner. The envelope contained a jester's greeting card manufactured by Forget-Me-Not Cards, American Greeting Cards Company. On the front, reproduced for the first time, was a drawing of dripping wet fountain pen hanging by a string, and the caption, "Sorry I haven't written, but I just washed my pen." On the inside was the punchline, written in splashy manic style, "And I can't do a thing with it." The inscription from the cipher slayer read, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I thought you would need a good laugh before you hear the bad news. You won't get the news for a while yet. P.S. Could you print this new cipher on your front page? I get awfully lonely when I am ignored. So lonely I could do my thing. 5 months were listed in abbreviated form at the bottom of the card. Des July Aug Sep Oc equals 7. Victims for all the months but August could be accounted for. It did seem that Zodiac was saying he had killed 2 people in August. Snoozey and Furlong were the only unsolved murders in August. SFPD could discover no others. Within the hour, the Zodiac squad began to check stationery stores that sell greeting cards in hopes that some clerk would remember selling the cards Zodiac had sent. In San Francisco alone, there were now 50 officers and 10 inspectors assigned to the Zodiac case full-time. Inside the greeting card, Zodiac had also sent his most complex cryptogram yet. The cipher was composed of 340 symbols, arranged in a block 20 lines deep and signed with his own personal symbol, a large circle with a cross superimposed over it. Tashi had photocopies made of the new cipher and sent them to the National Security Agency and the CIA in Washington. The NSA said that there was definitely a message in the cipher. Armstrong and Tashi hoped that when the Chronicle ran a photo of the 340-symbol cryptogram, amateur code breakers might get lucky a second time. It's just a matter of patience before it pieces itself together. Trial and error, said one cryptographer. That's what solves cryptograms. A linguistics expert at Massachusetts University ran the code over and over through a computer but got nowhere. In the spirit of code breaking, the examiner ran a cipher challenge to Zodiac from Dr. Marsh of the American Cryptogram Association. Dr. Marsh told the examiner that the killer wouldn't dare, as he has claimed in his letters, to reveal his real name in a cipher to established cryptogram experts. He knows, to quote Edgar Allan Poe, that any cipher devised by man can be solved by man. Dr. Marsh then printed a message to Zodiac in the killer's own code and dared him to send the ACA his real name encoded. The cryptographer's challenge to Zodiac, when deciphered, was a phone number for the killer to call and give his own cipher. In the Zodiac letter mailed November 9th, his 7th letter, the killer sent the Chronicle a 7-page diatribe. The complete text of this letter has never been released before now, and it has never been reproduced. Tashi and Armstrong started with the first page and made notes as they went. This is the Zodiac speaking. Up to the end of October 1st, I have killed 7 people. I have grown rather angry with the police for their telling lies about me, so I shall change the collecting of slaves. I shall no longer announce to anyone when I commit my murders. They shall look like routine robberies, killings of anger, and a few fake accidents, etc. The police shall never catch me because I have been too clever for them. I look like the description. I look like the description passed out only when I do my thing. The rest of the time I look entirely different. I shall not tell you what my disguise consists of when I kill. 2. As of yet, I have left no fingerprints behind me, contrary to what the police say. In my killings, I wear transparent fingertip guards. All it is 2 coats of airplane cement coated on my fingertips, quite unnoticeable and very effective. 3. My killing tools have been bought in through the mail order outfits before the ban. The 1968 Federal Gun Control Act forbade mail order sales of guns and ammunition and over-the-counter sale to out-of-state residents, mental patients, and convicted felons. Went into effect, except one, and it was bought out of the state. So, as you can see, the police don't have much to work on. If you wonder why I was wiping the cab down, I was leaving fake clues for the police to run all over town with, as one might say. I gave the cops some busy work to do to keep them happy. I enjoy needling the blue pigs. Hey, blue pig, I was in the park. You were using fire trucks to mask the sound of your cruising prowl cars. The dogs never came within 2 blocks of me, and they were to the west, and there was only 2 groups of parking about 10 minutes apart. Then the motorcycles went by about 150 feet away, going from south to northwest. P.S. 2 cops pulled a goof about 3 minutes after I left the cab. I was walking down the hill to the park when this cop car pulled up, and one of them called me over and asked if I saw anyone acting suspicious or strange in the last 5 to 10 minutes, and I said yes, there was this man who was running by waving a gun, and the cops peeled rubber and went around the corner as I directed them, and I disappeared into the park a block and a half away, never to be seen again. Hey pig, doesn't it rile you up to have your nose rubbed in your boo-boos? If you cops think I'm going to take on a bus the way I stated I was, you deserve to have holes in your heads. Take one bag of ammunition and take 1 bag of ammonium nitrate fertilizer and 1 gallon of stove oil and dump a few bags of gravel on top and then set the shit off, and I will positively ventilate anything that should be in the way of the blast. The death machine is already made. I would have sent you pictures, but you would be nasty enough to trace them back to developer and then to me, so I shall describe my masterpiece to you. The nice part of it is all the parts can be bought on the open market with no questions asked. 1 Pat bow clock will run for approximately 1 year. 1 photoelectric switch, 2 copper leaf springs, 2 6V car bat, 1 flashlight bulb and reflector, 1 mirror, 2 18-inch cardboard tubes with shoe polish inside and out. On the 5th page, the killer had drawn a diagram of the inner workings of the bomb. It was rigged to explode to the height of buses and to let the lower carriage automobiles pass by safely. The system checks out from one end to the other in my tests. What you do not know is whether the death machine is at the site or whether it is being stored in my basement for future use. If Zodiac actually did have a basement, then it meant he had a home of his own, was not an apartment dweller. It limited the number of places he might reside, since basements are not all that common in the Bay Area. Bless you. I think you do not have the manpower to stop this one, but continually searching the roadsides looking for this thing. And it won't be the reroute and reschedule the buses because the bomb can be adapted to new conditions. Have fun. By the way, it would be rather messy if you try to bluff me. At the bottom of the page, Zodiac had drawn a large crossed circle, 5 X's moving clockwise on the left hemisphere. Were these a symbolic map to the various Zodiac killings or a map to his doorstep? Most likely, the police decided. They were a calendar showing the dates of the 7 murders. P.S. Be sure to print the part I marked out on page 3 about being stopped by the police or I shall do my thing. To prove that I am the Zodiac, ask the Valito cop about my electric gun sight, which I used to start my collection of slaves. Tashi put the letter down. Get the army on the phone and find out if such a Rube Goldberg device could possibly be constructed, ordered Lee. The army bomb expert said, possible? It certainly is. Later, Chief of Police Al Nedler himself issued orders to the Zodiac squad to keep silent about the bomb details. In cooperation with the police, the Chronicle agreed not to print any part of the letter that dealt with the bomb. Fear of a school bus attack intensified. Tuesday, November 11, 1969. Officially, detectives were now ruling out Zodiac as the killer of the San Jose girls last August. The contention was that Zodiac's gigantic ego would not let him kill without assuming credit for the brutal attacks. In the press, Marty Lee said, Zodiac has been made out to be a madman, insane. I think the man is legally sane. He has exhibited intelligence by hiding and fleeing from the police. I do not picture him as a man who works with his hands. I guess he has a small job and works with paper. The cryptograms are a work of art. They are meticulously well aligned. Again, a guess. I think he is still in the Bay Area. Saturday, December 27, 1969. Melvin Belli was in Munich, Germany for a conference of military trial lawyers, so the barrister's housekeeper sent his unopened mail down to his office to be opened by his secretary. One letter was postmarked December 20th, but had been delayed by heavy Christmas mail. There was no doubt who the letter was from. Neatly folded inside the 4 by 7 inch white envelope was yet another portion of Paul Stein's blood-blackened shirt. This letter in felt tip pen was written in handwriting smaller than the last letter. It contained punctuation and spelling mistakes as usual. One of Belly's legal associates flew to Munich to give him a photo reproduction of the letter envelope and bloody scrap. A card had been enclosed that said, "Merry Xmas and New Year." The message, printed in block letters, Zodiac's 8th letter, read, "Dear Melvin, this is the Zodiac speaking. I wish you a happy Christmas. The one thing I ask of you is this. Please help me. I cannot reach out for help because of this thing in me won't let me. I'm finding it extremely difficult to hold it in check. I am afraid I will lose control again and take my 9th and possibly 10th victim. Please help me. I am drowning. At the moment, the children are safe from the bomb because it is so massive to dig in, and the trigger mech requires much work to get it adjusted just right. But if I hold back too long from No 9, I will lose complete, crossed out, all control of myself and set the bomb up. Please help me. I cannot remain in control for much longer." Zodiac seemed to be saying that he had taken an 8th victim since his November 8 and 9 letters. There were only 2 known possible victims, Elaine Davis and Leona Laurel Roberts. Davis had disappeared December 1st, 1969, a Monday, and has never been found. Leona Roberts disappeared on December 10th, 1969, a Wednesday, at 6 p.m. The body of the 16-year-old was found nude on December 28th, lying over a roadside embankment near Bolinas Lagoon. She had been kept alive for 10 days after her abduction from her boyfriend's apartment in Rodeo. None of her clothing was found, and she had not been sexually molested. But most importantly, she was found near a body of water, as all of Zodiac's victims had been. The killer had taken the keys to her VW. Zodiac had also used the phrase "a happy Christmas," which was a more common usage in Britain and Canada than in the United States. Zodiac warned of picking off the kiddies, which is another slang word from Great Britain or Australia. Could Zodiac be British? Belly was willing to meet in secret with the mass murderer any time, any place. He told the killer through the Chronicle, "You have asked me for help, and I promise you I will do everything in my power to provide you with whatever help you may need or may want. If you want to meet with me alone, I will come alone. If you want me to bring a priest or a psychiatrist or a reporter to talk with, I will do so. I will follow your instructions to the letter. You say you are losing control and may kill again. Do not make things worse. Let me help you now." To the reporters, Belly said, "I believe he wants to stop killing. I have carefully studied his letter, and I feel it is written at a time when he calmly and rationally was considering the future. He knows eventually he will be apprehended, and that unless he gets proper legal representation, he will most likely be sentenced to die in the gas chamber. That is why he is crying out for help. Why he has come to me. He wants to be saved from the gas chamber." In a phone call, a man claiming to be Zodiac had gotten along so well with Belly's housekeeper that Belly fully expected, "When I get home, he'll be sitting in the front room with the housekeeper. I think we can do something for him. We might get this guy and save some lives, including his." The killer never responded to Belly's appeal. It was months before the Cypher Slayer wrote to Belly again.